All right, sweet. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah, cool. All right. So we'll start with the first question. So
Sure.
pretty much first question is just to tell us about your career and how you arrived at your current position.
Yeah. Oh man. So it's kind of a long-winded answer, but I'll try to keep it semi-simple. But basically, uh, I always wanted to be an artist. And when I got into university, I was under the impression that I was going to be a fine artist.
Mhm.
And I actually got a degree both in like a dual emphasis degree that was studio art and art history. And I was playing around with this idea of like, maybe I could work in a museum or, some sort of, maybe I could just bend a piece of brass in a park and someone would give me $1 million, like
Yeah.
a lot of probably like not very well informed concepts or pipe dreams, however you want to call them. But I had like this thing against computer art, computer
Okay.
generated art and design. And it's basically just like a fear of change, and at the time, like, I'm not, I'm a young dude, but I'm not, at computers weren't like, not everybody was using computers,
Right. Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it wasn't nearly as prevalent as it is right now. So I finally ended up, like, just through the requirements of a degree, having to take a design class and a web design class and some things that required me to get on the computer and like a motion graphics class. And I started to get really interested in it. And the real thing that changed my life was I got an opportunity to take an internship. And it was really crazy because I thought there's no way that I'm going to get this thing, because my web teacher had this guy come in and he gave us a presentation of what he does and who he is.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, wow, like this guy, he like changed the world with his design.
Yeah.
It's a company called Novacom, and they basically were one of the leading companies in broadcast design in the world from like the late 80s to early millennium. And like
Wow.
everything that you see on television was kind of set into position with him, as far as like news networks and entertainment things like game shows and the Olympics and all kinds of stuff like that. And
Man.
so I
Yeah.
signed up for this internship and I got it. And I guess me and this girl got it, and we were the only two people that signed up, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, there's a little nugget there, because I never thought that I was qualified, but I guess neither did anyone else. But because I signed up, I got the thing. So anyway, this dude, his name was John Ridgway. He taught me about the power of design, as far as like this idea of what kind of power and messaging has when you mix typography and imagery, and how you can make a business out of it and how you can make money from it.
Yeah.
Um, and it was pretty interesting. And we worked on stuff like rebranding my college that I went to, like
Wow.
all kinds of crazy stuff. He taught me the value and the idea of a brand, and that kind of sent me running. So I tried to mimic his whole story for a little while, because I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty common thread throughout my career, is just, signing up for stuff that I'm grossly underqualified for, and then just like,
Take it
throwing
down.
punches and hoping that I don't get sent home.
Yeah.
Um, so had he had rebranded his school paper and created an art group at his school. So that's what I did. So I went to the school paper and I said, do you have an art department? And I like got the job as the layout editor, which was like
Yeah.
a paying college job. And I tried to rebrand the paper and like take on freelance like projects to drive revenue for the paper.
Oh, okay.
Um, and it was super fun. But unfortunately, that was like the last semester of my last year of college. I waited like too
Uh,
long. And so
yeah.
I didn't have very much time, but that got me started. And then right out of school, I got a job at a software company as a designer. Um, and it was a really good environment. And I basically got the job because there was this one other guy who's been the creative entity at this company for many years, and he really liked my skill set. Obviously I was super green. I had no experience really in anything
Uh-huh.
other than what I had done in school. And he was going to take me under his wing and like just kind of show me how to do this like corporate style, marketing and just daily production of what they need. um, and it was really great. I learned a lot of stuff because I was responsible for like creating little things and managing like a like a huge national website, like 3 different websites under this corporation, and trying to just generate like marketing stuff for them.
Yeah.
But then, and I'm a very naive person, because when I got there, I was thinking, well, this is it. I found my career. I'm going to be here for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And about 4 months into it, they were doing this big like expansion, and they brought on this marketing director from DirecTV. And this lady meant business, dude. She was like uh, super, super corporate, very political,
Yeah.
kind of a intense lady. And oh my God. And then the dude that I was mentoring under got moved to a different department. So then I was by myself and reporting directly to her. And she's used to working with like, a full design team of
Yeah.
people that are very senior, and I'm this green dude that's got
Yeah.
no experience, just trying to fumble around and do my best. It was a nightmare. And
Yeah.
about a few months after she came on, I finally got fired. And when I got fired, it was the greatest relief of my life.
Oh, geez.
Because like she was putting so much pressure on me, I was losing sleep. Like I couldn't sleep. I had to have Alyssa like comfort me before going to work
Yeah.
because I was just so stressed. Um, but fortunately, it was kind of weird. Like, I don't even know what I was so worried about, because the only real thing to be worried about at a job is getting fired. And when I got fired, I was so relieved. So
Yeah.
it was just mind games. So anyway, after
Yeah.
that, uh, I had like these, theories of grandeur, dude. I was going to like become this business mogul, and I
Yeah.
teamed up with my buddy, who was a mechanical engineer, and we were trying to
Yeah.
start a company. And we're like, oh, we're gonna develop like signs first, and like indoor branding, things for corporations, because I could do visual design, and then he could take my design and turn it into a physical thing
Yeah.
through mechanical engineering, like CNC machines and stuff like that. Um, and basically all we did was go to islands a lot and just talk about things.
Okay.
We didn't really get anywhere. And in the meantime,
Yeah.
Alyssa and I moved into our first place, and she got pregnant, and we were getting married. And like 4 or 5 months of me just like jumping around, like thinking I was doing something, I was
Yeah.
just losing money. It was nuts. And I had to end up
Oh,
going back
man.
to my job I had while I was in school, which was like
Yeah.
I was a meat cutter at a market. Actually, with Alyssa, she was a deli worker, and I was a meat cutter.
Oh, yeah. I remember. Okay.
And I went back there, and I was there for a while. And I live in, Simi Valley is a small community. I don't remember. Do you live here? Did you grow up
I,
here, or are you?
I live in TO, but I
Ah,
I was out in Simi a lot because of a soccer. So I
oh,
played
cool,
a lot of a soccer out there, like out of
sweet.
all the parks. Yeah. So I'm
Oh, nice.
pretty familiar with the area.
Well, yeah. So it's a small town,
Yeah.
and so is To. So everybody kind of knows everybody, and especially in a place like Green Acres, you have regular customers. But one of my friends I grew up with most of my life, his mom came in, and she's like, "What are you doing here?" Because she knew I like finished school and I was off
Yeah.
doing my thing. And her son, who is my age, actually has and had at the time a successful design career. I didn't know exactly where he was or what he was doing, but he was off doing his thing, and he was always a few years ahead of me. And basically, she's like, I told her what happened, and she's like, as I'm telling her, she picks up her phone and she starts calling her son, my friend Brandon.
Yeah.
And she's like, Brandon, Ryan's back at Green Acres. He needs a job. And I'm like laughing, like,
Yeah.
oh, Barbara, you're crazy.
Yeah.
And then a few days later, I'm at Starbucks with a friend, and we're just kind of talking about what I should do. And I get a call from an unknown number, and I answer it. And it's some lady that I don't know. And she's like, something, something, Robert Young, blah, 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 Crackle. And I'm like, what? I'm like, hey, lady, look, I don't know what Crackle is. And I'm not Robert Young. I'm Ryan Smith, but I think you got the wrong number. And she's like, no, no. She's like, I'm talking about a job. You got a job at Crackle? It's in the Robert Young building. I was like, what? And
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, I'm calling in regards to your paperwork. I was like, what are you talking about? Right? And then all of a sudden my whole demeanor changed. I'm like, oh, well,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for calling. And
Yeah.
it turns out that without applying,
Yeah.
without interviewing, without an application, Barbara's son, Brandon, got me a job where he works is at this place called Crackle, which I didn't even know what it was until I got there. And Crackle is like Sony's version of Netflix. And so I got a job at Sony Pictures
Oh,
Television.
dang.
And
Okay.
I, I roll up my first day because I like signed the paperwork and sent it back. And I was like, I was so confused. And I show up and it's Sony Pictures Television movie lot in Culver City. And I was like, holy, oh my God, this is insane. And
Yeah.
like I roll up to the gate and they're like, oh, come on in, you know?
Yeah. It's
And
insane.
dude, it was so wild. And I'm sitting there, and the creative director comes over, this guy named Jake Munsey, and he is responsible for like developing Fuel TV, like the
Yeah.
brand of Fuel TV in the 90s
Wow.
when it was
Yeah.
huge. Like, I didn't know that at the time, but he's like, oh, who are you? And I was like, I'm Ryan. He's like, oh, I thought you were starting next week. Like all this stuff. It was so
Yeah.
crazy, dude. And I got my seat and literally the whole job was, you know, like when you go onto a streaming site, you see all of the key art and the still captures of the different entertainment, right?
Yeah.
To in the library or category to see what you want. Well, my whole job was scrubbing through videos and capturing those still images per direction from whatever internal marketing team, and then taking key art files from different studios and productions and breaking it apart and reshaping it to fit all these different digital banners depending on different devices and platforms that
I
it's going to
see.
show up on.
Okay.
So that requires Photoshop, the use of a stylus, the ability to retouch and color correct. I had never done any of those things, dude.
Yeah.
And my desk was right in front of the creative director. I could see his reflection in my computer screen. And
Geez.
so
Pressure's on.
every day, oh, it's so stressful. Every single day, I got there like an hour early. I'd stay a few hours late, and I was just hustling, do everything I could just to
Yeah.
not drop the ball. And my whole goal was to not get fired for a year. And I got hired as a production artist.
Yeah.
Um, so that's how I ended up at Sony. From there on, there's been many different like generations
Yeah.
because in the entertainment industry, at least on the corporate side, I'm not sure about the production side, but there's a tremendously high turnover rate. People are constantly getting let go and brought on, and also there's this whole controversy of like permatemps.
Yeah.
Corporations, you know, it's very expensive to bring people on in a legitimate way, so
Yeah.
they kind of like, you know, utilize these job networking companies that they pay a little, you know, fee to um, on the hourly rate that they get talents for. And you can get a higher hourly rate, but you don't get any paid time off, you don't get any benefits or nothing.
I
And
see.
then they can drop you without any justification as soon as your contract's up or even before. But there's been some legal things that have been kind of cracking back on that. But I became a permatemp. You're supposed to only be contracted for 2 or 3 terms max at I think 6 months a piece, 3 or 6 months. But anyway, I was there for like uh, almost 2 years, 2.5 years. So it's like
Oh,
7 contracts,
okay.
and I still, you know, wasn't brought on full time. You know, and full time is just a term for, you know, getting benefits and everything and being an employee of Sony rather than an employee of some temp agency.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, you know, and at that time, like, you know, Crackle was growing, and we had a little design, like a little production team in Crackle that handled all of the client facing imagery, and both on the product side and the marketing side. And I did what I was told, which is if you want to get, you know, any leverage, you have to get leverage if you want to negotiate your way through something. So
Yeah.
I went and I got a job somewhere else and I got hired. Um, and I brought my resume and put it on the desk. I was like, or not my resume, my offer letter. And I was like, hey, look,
Okay.
you know, this is something I got to do for my family, blah, blah, blah. And they made me a deal. and they brought me on full time, which was super cool. And all right, sorry, this is taking a long time, but to wrap it up,
Yeah, yeah.
um, I went from Crackle. They moved me over to something called the Sony Pictures Television's games team, and they're a team that works on mobile games and apps based on different Sony properties.
Okay.
Um, it used to be primarily just Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, but then they opened up to like Sony Pictures animation titles like Smurfs and Emoji Movie and all these things. And then since then, we've evolved to like all these products for Amazon. So we're building games for like Amazon Echo. And I went from being like a production artist to an entertainment designer to getting interested in like user experience design. And because I
Oh,
was started to work on games. So I went from like working on little units to market games to saying like, oh man, this brand sucks. Like, let me design the brand. So, because I
yeah,
learned all that stuff from John at Novacom. So I was like then designing logos and brand systems to help the marketing for games. And then I got interested in the actual products. Like, wow, I'm making this game look so much better than it actually is,
yeah.
because once you play it, it's terrible. So I went to like
Yeah.
a trade school called, what's it called? I don't know. I don't remember. I went to General Assembly. I went to a trade school
Okay.
called General Assembly and got credentialed in user experience design. And I brought that back, and they started allowing me to work with the developers on the actual
Uh,
product for the UX design. So then I'm like doing all these things in the game, and and yeah. So that's, I think that's probably. Oh, but then there was like, so I went from the Crackle design team to the games team, and then all of a sudden, all this change in the company and management happened, and there was this thing, like they created this internal creative agency for the entire lot of Sony Pictures Television
yeah.
called the Creative Center, and I got pulled into that. And now I'm a part of this global agency that deals with the creative for the entire Sony Pictures Television company. And we're expanding to like Sony Music and all this stuff, which is really cool.
Well, that's
Um,
sounds huge.
yeah, it's pretty neat. So that's my long-winded answer.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. No, it's a good history. It's good to know, like, because a lot of people will just say like, oh, now like this is what I do, or like I went from this to this to this, but they didn't really break down how they did it. And I feel like
Well,
that's the
why? Yeah.
most interesting part, like knowing actually how you did it.
Mhm.
Um, and like actually just doing it, just taking the chance and like putting yourself out there.
That's
Because I
all
know
it is, man.
it's huge. Not a lot of people want to do that, but like listening to somebody actually who did it, put themselves out there, even like even though you didn't have the knowledge at the time, you just did it.
Yeah.
I feel like I feel like that's just what you got to do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, and the reason why I felt like I had the permission to do that is because of John Ridgway at Novacom and the people he introduced me to. Basically, from him on, anybody that
Yeah,
I ever met that had a career or a life that I thought was worth having or very interesting or like unfathomable, like how did you get there? How'd you do that? They
yeah,
always said the same things, which is like, well, I was just out hustling, doing the best I could, and this opportunity came up, and I went for it. And then I went and did this. Like,
yeah,
dude, there's this guy named John Teschner who worked with John Ridgway, and he went from working on these, entertainment stuff with John Ridgway to then working on these special like graphics for the Pentagon.
well,
And then
yeah,
then he owned a chicken farm in Jamaica, and then
yeah,
like he just went everywhere. It's basically like just going with the flow of life, man, and your
yeah.
passion. It's really neat, and I was like all about that.
That's
So that's
crazy.
what I'm
Where
still
like
trying to do.
yeah, it's crazy where it'll take you.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah. Sick. Well,
absolutely.
that was a good first answer. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
All right. All right. So for you, what would like let's say you're going into work tomorrow, what would your workday look like?
Yeah, and I am going into work tomorrow. So right now, my work day. Well, so my workday for Sony is, it's a very structured system
Yeah.
because we're an actual agency, like an in-house agency. So I have producers and operation managers and creative directors, all these layers of management, and we work with different, uh, production tools. So we work with something called Reich, which is just a website that helps the producers and operations team manage the flow of projects and everybody's time budget, like how much time do you have and what are you
Yeah.
working on. So for me, I go in, I look at my dashboard that has my list of projects and it has statuses. And most things that I work on are with other people, right? So it's not often that I'm the sole designer on something. And actually, just recently, they made me a design lead, which is really cool. So what that means is I'm designing, but I'm also overseeing and like helping try to coach other people
Okay.
and make sure that the project is cohesive and on target for the request. But basically, we get requests from clients, and since it's an internal agency, all the clients are different companies in Sony,
Oh,
and so they contact us through a request email portal, and they make a request, and then the operations team processes that request. They identify what type of talent is needed, like we need a designer, an animator, a creative director, yada yada yada,
yeah.
an editor, and then they file that in. They look at all of our schedules, and they go, okay, we could throw Ryan on the design, MJ on the creative direction, like that. And then for me individually, I see all my projects and I just kind of work towards the goal. Right now, we're working on a new game called For Rock'em Sock'em Robots,
Oh, wow.
which is
Okay.
really cool, but it's a huge undertaking because it's for the Amazon Echo, which is a voice interactive game. But
Yeah.
now the Echo is touchscreen enabled and also animated. They can have animation. So we designed a brand, and I designed like the app UI of the game. So like when you're navigating through, like, updating your character, selecting your gameplay mode, going in the store, all those things is the app part of it. And then there's the game part of it. So we designed like boxing ring environments and character designs, and then animating the character per all the different moves that they have. And because the way that the Echo is enabling motion is through HTML5. So
Yeah.
we're taking something like After Effects and animating these moves and then using a plugin to generate HTML5 code that then plug into the Amazon Echo. It's really
Yeah.
gnarly. And there's so many different things that have gone wrong so far.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing right now. But then also like um part of the reality, at least with some people that I know, it's not super common, but some designers and creative people, they have like part-time like freelance gigs as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
so right now I've got Sony and then two other gigs that I'm doing. I have a retainer client where I have give 10 hours a week, and it's like a tech company,
Yeah.
and they basically have me do oddball projects. Like we need a one sheet to to advertise internally this new feature to give to our B2B partners, like to teach them about this new product that we have. Or they just sent me a project for creating like animated Zoom backgrounds for their meetings that are like sci-fi
Uh,
and techie that fit into their brand. And then
cool.
I have another freelance client that I just took on a few months ago, where I'm developing the entire product in UI and UX for his product that he's making. He's creating something called an SDK, which is a software development kit,
Yeah.
and basically it's for like game developers to access a database with all of their data, like live data from their games. So they
Okay.
purchase this SDK and plug their game into it, and then they could see all the data from their users from when they first click on an ad to all of their actions within the game until they leave. And
Oh,
I'm designing the entire product for them, which is kind of crazy. So I'm doing all that. So right now my work day is me basically being really stressed and trying to do um, as much as I possibly can. But
yeah. Sounds like a lot.
those things are because of that mentality, which right now it's probably gotten to the point where it's a little irresponsible and a little, too chaotic. So I need to kind of
Yeah.
reel it in. But that's
But
like the other end of the spectrum that can happen, is like, yeah, you get these cool opportunities, and then you can also
yeah.
bury yourself with work. So
But sometimes you just take too much that you can't handle.
well, the difference is I've always been willing,
Yeah.
but I've established connections and skill sets now where I actually have a demand. So now I have to like learn to aggregate that demand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm going to be overburdened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a new thing for me.
Well,
So
I guess that's good because I know a lot of freelancers. A big thing for freelancers just is finding work. Uh,
yeah. Hmm.
I mean, that's good that you're busy.
Well, there's something to that too. And cut me off if I'm taking too much time, man. But I've always had this desire to just like, break away from the man, just do my own thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have to wait till the time is right because unless you have time and money or to market yourself or you have insane sales skills, like you need connections and
Yeah.
you need portfolio and you need, established things in order to uh, cultivate that type of work in order to be a freelancer. So the longer that I stay at Sony, the more people that I know. What happens is, so since there's such a high turnover, people come in, I get to know them, we're friends. I establish myself as a professional. They see what I can do, and then
Yeah.
they go and do great things at other companies. And now all of a sudden I knew nobody, and then I knew some Sony people, and now I know
Yeah.
everybody everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's really where it's at. If you want to do that, you have to go somewhere and invest the time and make the connections. And then all that stuff will start trickling back,
I
which is
see.
really
Yeah.
cool.
So you're essentially just building your foundation first. That's pretty much name of the game.
Yeah.
Build your foundation first, and then go
Yep.
from there. And then eventually you get to the point where it'll be, you built a home. You built I guess you built your brand. You built yourself.
Yeah. And your network. And I still don't think I'm even there yet. But I'm a lot further than I was when I was at
Yeah,
Islands with my friend.
that's sick. Cool. All right. Let's see. Oh, so this one's good. So, what aspects of your education or training made you more capable of marketable in this field?
I know. So I know. I mean, I think still undoubtedly like the greatest return has been my internship at Novacom, right?
Oh, okay. Dang.
Because that was the catalyst of everything in my career. As far as like, I mean, I was introduced to some of the software that I
Yeah.
use, but I basically had no knowledge when I got my job at Sony. So it's kind of hard to say. Um, I definitely learned to lose sleep and be productive tired
Yeah.
and to, do a lot of work quickly, but still it wasn't really much in comparison. I think for me personally,
Yeah.
as the person that I was and I am, like I needed that time to grow up because I was very immature, you
Okay.
know, and like establish this other persona of like being a college student versus, just being somebody, some young person.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't professional, I wasn't like well kept, like I was a little crazy.
Yeah.
Um, so that was like a great interlude, and then I guess it also was a great time like to explore and find interest and develop things like that, because I basically I got a degree in art history, and I learned a lot of really awesome stuff. And then I also developed this interest in career uh, interest in like, oh, well, maybe I'll get into the museums and stuff like that. So I think it grew my mind as far as my interests and desires and made me a little bit more professional. And then I had that opportunity to work at the paper and stuff like that. So there was some entrepreneurship too that happened in that
Okay.
experience.
So
So
what?
not a very simple answer, sorry.
No, no. I mean, it makes sense because it didn't. It essentially just taught you to like be curious and like,
Yeah, so it's the experience, not a
yeah.
skill.
Right. Yeah. 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 Because yeah, for that, I mean, a lot of the time, like the experience is, I feel like for a lot of people, the experience is more, I guess, useful than sometimes like the physical thing that you get taught or the actual like, making the mistake or taking the chance.
Yeah, yeah,
A lot of the times it's not
absolutely.
like, oh, it's this computer system that helped me throughout, whatever.
I
It's
mean, yeah.
usually the experience.
Yeah.
Um, so what advice would you give to somebody going into this field?
So that advice I think is for me would be in any field, which is, go for it. Even
Yeah.
if you're underqualified, sign up and do your best. Just sell yourself just to the point of completely lying.
Yeah.
Just so you could get in and start cutting your teeth.
Yeah.
And then so all that, and like not, being open-minded, because
Yeah.
there's so many things that you can do, especially with design. It's endless. And then the other thing is, don't be humble in the sense of who you are and who others are, right? Because it's very easy when you get into an environment that you're not used to or that you're inexperienced in, to like all of a sudden feel like, whoa, like, there's the whoever it
Yeah.
is,
Like, yeah.
the director or the CEO or the VPs or whatever. Because I was given that leveling experience with John Ridgway, like saying, oh, like I can relate to this guy and like learn from this guy when he is at the end of his career that was so monumental, and I'm me. And so when I got into
Yeah.
Sony, like I just walked into the VP's office and like, hey, can I pick your brain sometime?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like just ask them, how did you get here? Like, what's going on? Like, explain this to me. And
Yeah.
I've like interviewed all these really influential people in my company, and it's so funny, like it's so easy, and you see people like, oh, when they walk by, like they tense up, like, because
Yeah.
God forbid, but really they're just people. And when someone takes a personal interest in what they've done, they're generally, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody that will probably tell you to kick rocks, but
Yeah.
for me, they've generally just been very warm and informative and welcoming. And I've gotten a lot out of that, as well as forging relationships with the right people too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so, oh, there's a crazy looking lizard over there. But anyway,
So just
yeah, that's my
just do
advice.
it. Just go for it.
Go for it, and then
Yeah.
also don't be afraid of people. So don't be afraid of opportunities, and then don't be afraid of the people in those opportunities, and learn from your experience in those people.
Okay. Well, we'll kind of touch that based on this in a little bit, but what are some career paths for a person starting in your profession?
Yeah, dude. So my profession right now uh, is more leaning towards, oh God, it's so many things. But right now I'm in the gaming, corporate, tech, entertainment space.
Yeah.
at least like with Sony, and then freelance wise, I'm more in like this freelance digital design, like branding, marketing person. And then also with that other project, I'm like this freelance product designer, UI, UX person.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, so like I was saying, like I tried to start that company with my friend who was a mechanical engineer, and we're like, oh, his name was John Whaley, and we're like, oh, Smith and Whaley Custom Engineering and Design,
Yeah.
right? And then before that, I started my friend Mac is he was a political science major,
Okay.
right? And so we created this company. We're like, hey, instead of branding like small businesses, which I was doing at freelance for the time, like, why don't we use your skill set of political science and government to then allow me to brand candidates and campaigns, and we become a political advising firm, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so we put on suits and printed business cards and went to places, like handed them out.
Yeah.
you know, I didn't get any traction with those two things, but the reality is that it's doable, it's possible, right? There
Yeah.
isn't a single industry in the world that doesn't require some form of design. It's
Right.
just that
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah.
So, whether you end up in engineering or, politics or entertainment or environmentalism, like anything, they all need design. So
Yeah.
it's, that's why those two words of advice are valid, I think, indefinitely, because that will allow you to forge any one of those paths as well as jump from one to the other.
Yeah.
Um,
So it could pretty
yeah,
much just take you anywhere for the most part, honestly.
I think so. Yeah. I really do. Oh, and then I was in news, right? Like even just, yeah. So I was in news for a while, and then even at Sony, I was in streaming networks. Then I was in like motion picture entertainment, and then I was in mobile gaming and all these different things.
Okay.
Oops.
Yeah, because that one is, I feel like it's huge. Every time I talk to people about this, it's like, dude, you can literally almost do anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like for me, when people say like, oh, what do I want to do? It's like, I don't know. I can stay with Apple because they still do design. They still do video. Like they still have this whole marketing team. And it's literally like that with like any company. Any company is going to
Yeah.
have like a design team. Um, so yeah, it's honestly, it's just like, what do you want to do? What company do you want to work for? Because they probably have a design team, or they probably have some sort of person who does that. Um, so it's a good field, I feel like,
Oh,
especially
dude.
if you got that creative mindset.
Yep.
It's like you can
Well,
take it anywhere.
I'm so glad that you have that outlook too, because um, when I met Alyssa's dad and he asked me what I was going to school for, I
Yeah,
said, "Oh, art." And then his reaction, like on his face, there was some silence, and I was like, "And a business minor, right?"
yeah,
But that wasn't true. Like, but
yeah,
that's because there's like this, stigma to like art. But
right,
you know,
yeah.
um, yeah, you could do anything.
Yeah, or like when people ask me like, "Oh, what's your major?" It's like mine is multimedia. My
Yeah,
emphasis is HD cinema, and they're like, "Oh,
cool.
what's multimedia? Like, what are you gonna do?" And it's like, hey, think of like literally just any sort of brand, any sort of logo. Like, I can make it.
Yeah.
I can do something similar to it, and then people are like, "Oh, okay, like that makes sense." Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. All right, let's see. So, what qualities would make someone a star performer in your occupation?
Yep. So I think probably the main thing is like being hungry, like just willing to, at all costs, just like do your best, be open to learn, take critique, like, you know, hone your skills, like just keep going.
Yeah,
Because it could be very defeating, like I think that's the whole technical side of it, right? There's a whole technical side where we're dealing with these products that are immense, like incredibly deep. And you could spend your whole life learning one of these tools, but we use many of them.
yeah,
And then in combination with mastering these ever growing and changing products is uh, the the projects themselves are so diverse and multimedia, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like on any given day, we're doing like a physical brand design, or we're designing a marketing campaign, or we're creating a title sequence, motion graphic title sequence, or like it's just all, or we're doing like environmental design for a big promotional event. Like, so I think dexterity in your skills, like unwavering, like ability to just stick with it and do your best to handle critique. And then lastly would be like, uh, our, being creative. I mean, that's a huge thing, right? But
yeah,
there's a lot of there's like kind of two types of people in my industry. There's the technicians who are great at their craft and they master their programs, and they're just, unwaveringly like always hitting their deadlines, no matter what, it's going to turn out quality. And then there's like the creatives. So that's like production artists versus designers. Like
yeah,
production artists are like making sure all the everything is to the print spec or whatever spec it is, and they can make anything look clean, professional. um, and the designers are the ones that are just idea generators, just constantly
yeah.
ideating and developing. And then there's some people that are both. um, so gosh, yeah, I don't know, man. I think open-mindedness, drive, um, thick skin.
Yeah, definitely thick
Yeah,
skin. Yeah,
yeah,
that one's
yeah.
huge.
You can't be defeated easily.
Yeah,
You have to take it on the chin and learn from it every time. And you know what? Actually, even more, almost more than any of those things, at least in the corporate environment and freelance, if you're going to be a freelancer, especially, is
Yeah.
people skills. The
Oh yeah.
ability to be able to get, like people and have people like you, and
Yeah.
talk to people on like a personal level. That's everything, dude.
Yeah, I think that one's huge, because you could be really really good at your job and be like the best person for the job, but if you can't talk to your client, you can't talk to your boss, and like you're not sociable, like you're not going to get the job at the end of the day. Like the guy who gets the job done, it may not be as good, but he's friendly, he's likable, and he can actually like talk to you and communicate well. Like he's going to get the job. So I think that one is
Yeah,
huge. I feel like it's often overlooked, because people are like, oh yeah, focus on your portfolio, do this, do that, and like nail your interview, nail your resume. But at the end of the day, like if you don't interview well, like if they don't like you, they're not going to take you.
yeah,
Um,
that's right.
sounds big.
Well, and actually, so at the software company, when I got fired, the CEO was in the room, the HR room with me, and he said, you have a lot of friends here. Which, didn't mean much at the time, but it was nice. And the
Yeah,
idea is, I was very fortunate. I got like, I had those people skills my whole life. I've always been able to make friends.
yeah.
Um, but I didn't have the technical skills to back it.
Okay.
So I walked away with, you got a lot of friends here, but I
Yeah,
got fired, right? And
yeah,
then at Sony, like, I developed those skills. So now I've been able to, granted, a lot of it has to do with luck, but I've been able to sidestep a lot of layoffs because of that mix between technical ability and social skill, um, sociability.
so you got like the best of both worlds pretty much.
Oh, I wouldn't say that, but they're both something that are important that you need.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so this one, so when you're working on a project, and or let's say you're rebranding a company, or you're doing some freelance work, what would your creative process look to take it from like, company says, this is the goal, this is what I want to do, like you're gonna go ahead and you have full creative power on it. Like, what would your planning look like?
Well, so for any project, if I was going to talk about it like evergreen over the board, like there's kind of an interview process or something called the discovery phase.
Mhm.
And that's the phase where you develop like a perspective from the client. So you ask them a series of questions and have like a multi-step interview process, trying to identify like, okay, so you say that um, I need a logo.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what is your company? What do you do? What's your product? Who are your target base? Like, who are you selling to? What's the story behind your company? What's the story behind your product? What, and essentially what that does, a discovery, is it discovers uh, what is the brand, right?
Mhm.
Because the brand is the language essentially between a product or a company and its target, right? That you're marketing to. It's
Mhm.
like this whole personality and this mission, this story. And through that, in a UX perspective, you can identify something called user personas and user goals, right? So
Yeah.
personas are like a personality type, right? So, maybe you sell orange juice to young kids that skateboard, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
who knows? But you
Yeah.
know, when you know that, instead of like, hey, I need a logo, okay, it could be anything. But if you sell orange juice to young kids who skateboard, like I imagine we're gonna end up with something like the Kool-Aid guy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you get a little bit clearer perspective or understanding of what's going on. And then you can develop user goals. So like we develop these personas of, Pedro, of Ryan, of
Yeah.
Alyssa, whoever, and we have like a brief, like a soft understanding of who they are, what motivates them, what are they used to seeing, and what do they want. And then you take that and try to draw tangible lines between their reality versus the brand reality of, what's the story of your company and your product and your mission, and what are you trying to offer, and then you connect those together. And that's basically, that works across anything from branding and marketing to product design and development to web design, anything, right? Because any of those things are an effort to communicate with a base, you
Yeah.
know, because you have to make a personal connection with somebody if they're going to entrust you with their time or spend their money on you. Those are the two most valuable things, time and money. Um, so yeah, so and then user goals are more, I guess, like if you're just straight up selling something, the goal is to get the user to make a purchase. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
or if you want them to visit your site or click on your ad. But then if you have a digital product and you want them to be immersed, then the user goals are like, well, we want them to create an account. We want
Yeah.
them to, make their first purchase or beat the first level, right?
Yeah.
And so then you like optimize a flow to help them
Get to that
accomplish
point.
that task. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
So sorry, I'm like jamming all these different industries into one answer, but basically
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's my idea. Shit.
All right.
Might have to take this back inside because Alyssa's got to go to work.
She working at 9:30?
Yeah.
9. Yeah.
Or I think 9. Yeah. Something like that.
Let's see. Okay. What does in your opinion, well, this one's actually kind of tough because I know I assume you use a lot of different, software programs, but in your opinion, what's the most beneficial software to use or software program? Or I'd say even like, I guess, yeah, I guess
It's easy,
software
dude.
program.
It's easy. So I'm an Adobe man.
Okay. Same. All right. Hold on. You're little laggy.
Sorry.
You're good.
Hold on.
Okay. I think we're good now.
There we go. Yeah. So I was saying Adobe, their collection, the Creative Cloud collection, they've got everything that you could need.
Oh yeah.
They're a little lacking on like 3D stuff. Most people in the industry will use like C4D or Maya or something like that, ZBrush, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing
Mhm.
like title sequence entertainment stuff or character design, that'd be like the difference between C4D and like ZBrush or something.
Yeah.
But for the most part, Adobe stuff is where it's at.
Okay. Yeah. I love me some Adobe.
Yeah,
Uh,
me too. Did you go to Max at all? See any of the Max?
yes. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I watched a few. Yeah. So for this class actually that I'm doing the interview for, instead of going to class that day, he just had us like watch anything we wanted to, which was super cool.
Oh,
Um,
sweet.
so I watched a few Premiere Pro workflow, like how to stay organized, how to choose the right clip, what clip to look for, like what you're looking for in a shot.
Cool.
Um, I attended one of those. I attended a few Photoshop ones just to like learn the basics and
Nice.
stuff. Because I like Photoshop. It just, could get a little overwhelming sometimes.
Sure.
And then a story to how to tell a story through video. How to tell a story just using your iPhone and like how to shoot a short story on your iPhone, which I'd like to kind of try. Just make a short story all from a phone, because I don't think you need like $1,000 worth of camera gear and all this stuff to create something good.
Yeah. Well, and there's ways around it too, right? Like, I know some guys that like have their own production companies and they do a lot of renting of
Yeah.
gear. And then you can also, so that's something we didn't really cover, but like there's the whole business side of this stuff that you really also need, especially, well, I guess exclusively if you want to do your own thing.
Mhm.
You have to have the business sense and understandability. So for that, you can spec out the stuff that you need for the production to be at the level it needs to be, which also is in relation to that target audience and that discovery process. And then you can say, well, we really need like super high quality footage or not. And then
Yeah.
you can do your research on like, well, we need studio time, we need cameras, lighting, maybe a production assistant, right? And then you build that budget and you bring that to the client.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a client, then you could do investing, right? So like that's why they have Kickstarter and stuff like that,
Mhm.
or even seed investors for different productions I've seen people do. So there's always ways around it.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, it's that same like never-ending drive, dude. It
Yeah.
can happen.
Cool. All right. So the last, I guess last question. So when you're sitting down at the computer, when like you're ready to start a project, you have 4 hours of like time that you're going to give yourself to work on this one project. What does your workflow look like?
Hmm. Well,
What gets you comfortable into the zone?
I guess it just depends, right? So it depends on what part of the process I'm in. So if I'm in like a discovery process of just learning about a company or a product or a user, um, generally I never stop doing that, because anytime that I'm like just have downtime, I'm looking through like Pinterest or websites or something like that, or even playing games or whatever, like can be part of my research.
Yeah.
So you're constantly trying to get inspiration and a better understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. So that's kind of around the clock. Even like dreaming, dude. Like I'll try to throw something into
Yeah.
my subconscious, because sometimes you'll have no ideas or you'll be stuck on something. And if you sleep on it, you wake up and you know what to do. Like that's happened before.
Okay.
Then if sometimes there's like just jamming on something, so you have a full understanding of what you have to do, and you just have to do it,
Yeah.
right? So it's more craft and creativity than it is like rational like thought and problem solving. For
Mhm.
that, I'll throw in like a podcast or some music, or I'll put a movie up and I'll just jam on the computer.
Okay.
um, right, and then I think those are my two. Well, so yeah. And then the other one is like really like crunchy, like big thought, like problem solving, like getting granular about things too. Like, oh, like the functionality of digital elements, like something's super simple, right? Oh, well,
Yeah.
they all they got to do is this one action. But when you put it on screen, you're like, wait, that doesn't really make sense, because if they hover here or click there or do
Yeah.
this or that, like you need more context, or maybe there's a greater functionality that you could have there, or there's so many different things. Yeah, no problem. Um, so for that, I just need to be quiet and focused.
Okay.
Um, so yeah. And then sometimes you got to make the wife coffee.
Dude, yeah. Being at home is cool. Do you work from home or do you yeah.
Right now I do. It's
Yeah.
so nuts. It's
Oh
so
man.
crazy.
I can hear maybe
Yeah.
the girl screaming. Someone
Right
screaming.
now, because I signed up for so much work, like
Yeah.
my life consists of a very tight handoff between working very late and early
Yeah.
to being, watching the kids, which is fun, but it's a lot. There's not a lot of in between time.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. A lot of hard work. But
Good.
you're killing it, so that's good.
Thanks, man. Hey,
Um yeah.
I wonder, so it's not a guarantee, but and I don't know if you need anybody else, but I'd be willing to ask my friend Justin if you would want to interview him. And because he's a really passionate and driven guy, even way more, almost more so than me, for sure. And his whole experience has been in like actual live productions, and more along the more in line with what you're doing and focusing on right now.
Okay. Okay.
Just an offer, man. If you're interested, I can ask him. He's a super cool dude. Could be beneficial, even just to know him.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if you can
Let me know.
if you can ask him, yeah, I'd love to.
Would you?
Yeah. That'd be
Nice.
dope. Yeah, because I mean, we don't have a set limit of how many interviews, because essentially we're just like reaching out to people and we get who we get. And so, I mean, for me, the more the merrier, you know, like the more I can learn, the more knowledge I can take in, I mean, the better for me. So, I mean, you're only helping me at this point, you know, it's not like,
Well, so Justin, he was a big part of, you remember the movie Air Bud?
yes, yeah.
So that's actually a production company. It's like Air Buddies Entertainment or something like that. And they manage and produce like all kinds of stuff under that brand and around that brand. And Justin was on that for a while. He was also on like the live production of the Queen Latifah show and oh dude, like a bunch of really interesting stuff. So he would be great.
Okay.
So
Yeah. I mean, if he's free, I'd love to. And then you can text him, like if he asks the questions, or, you know, I can get in contact with him. I can text him the questions.
but yeah, let me reach out to him and I'll let you know.
Cool. But yeah, that was my last question.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Got a lot of good insight. That was really good.
Thanks, dude.
Hey. But yeah, that was really, really good. A lot of good. I feel like I'm glad we talked, because I feel like we have a lot of very similar outlooks on everything. When it
Nice.
comes to just like doing it, just do it. Believe in yourself is a huge one, and like, you know, just bet on yourself. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, why not, dude? You know?
Yeah, because you know how well you can do work. You know, you're the only one who can. You're the only one who can stop you, essentially. Um,
I
is the way
agree.
I look at it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But sweet. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time, because I know you're a busy guy.
All good, dude.
2 kids and work, like it's props to you. Props to you.
All right,
Uh,
brother. Well, good talking to you, man.
yeah.
Maybe I'll see you soon.
Yes, hopefully. And then yeah, good luck with the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Talk to you later, man.
Bye.
Bye.